Hello everyone, my name is Amir. I'm IoT product manager and strategist. This channel is all about IoT. My goal is to help other product managers and manufacturers to better design and launch an IoT product. We have talked about the technical side in other episodes, from the communication, cellular, matters, security so far. But at the end of the day, how we can make this technology feasible, doable, and sustainable. We have to monetize it. Maybe just for a service or bundle of the technology and the data analysis. This is the first episode of IoT going through that specific angle, a new angle for us. We want to talk about the SaaS model specifically today, and because of that, my guest today is Zandra Moore, CEO of the Panintelligence. How are you, Zandra?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Amir. Delighted to be here.
That's great. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. So I want to, first of all, I know you, but I want to ask you to go a little bit about your background and your history, so for your audience.
Thanks, Amir. I'm a technology salesperson actually originally from my very early days. I was very much inspired by a mother who was an early vanguard into the field of the information superhighway, or the early dawnings of the internet, through to advanced infrastructure provisioning, which is actually the early dawn of cloud. So it's hard not to be inspired by a female in your home who is selling servers to companies and websites before anybody knew what websites were. So I've always been in technology. I graduated and moved into the tech space and worked for lots of different SaaS companies. In fact, many of them were migrating from traditional client server technologies into the cloud, and sort of went on a journey with them as they were doing that. In 2014, I set up Panintelligence with my co-founder. We actually acquired some IP from another technology company, and we on-developed that, and we've been building that business up over the last 5-6 years, and we have a data analytics, data visualization platform that's deployed through a SaaS service or a cloud service that connects to any data, like IoT data, and enables people to visualize and turn that into really engaging and useful insights for people.
Okay, fantastic. That's great. So let's jump to our discussion. So first of all, about the IoT. IoT is everywhere these days. So we've seen the smart home, we have seen the industrial IoT, commercial IoT, and also agriculture. Everywhere these days we have a IoT sensor nodes and systems devices. And some of them they're updating data and uploading data to the cloud system. Some of them they're edge computing. So first of all, before going to the business side, I want to ask you, although I know you're on the business side, you're on the analysis side, but what kind of application of the IoT sensors you have seen in your company actually so far, and you've worked with?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really broad range. So we are a technology that can be used over any type of data, and therefore any vertical or any industry. So as an example, in aviation, it's CV, so camera facial recognition technologies in airports for security. In construction, it's access control, fingerprint or access devices for monitoring the number of people moving on and off site. It's the built environment where you've got intelligent buildings, where you're dealing with heat control sensors and the facilities management type aspect of having better controls of the operating overheads and costs of an asset, a physical asset. Through to retail, where it's footfall monitoring, again, sometimes just counting technology, footfall sensors, Cisco Meraki type cameras, which are actually just engaging with identifying the number of people in store. And actually during COVID was really interesting that we saw the same sort of IoT data in that context being pivoted for a different use case. So from helping people to work out the flows of where they would move people through their store for more kind of store planning, through to actually using exactly the same data for giving customers information about how many people were in store and managing things like social distancing. Same technology, same data, different use case, but using technology to sort of help people engage with that data to make decisions. I could go on. I mean, it is like we've used solar panels, right? Monitoring kind of efficiencies across solar technologies. So it can be from the simplest, a predictive maintenance on sensors in manufacturing floors, or installed devices like boilers, through to much more kind of expensive and complex technologies, like I say, solar panels and others. It does range a huge amount.
Oh, great, great, great. So let's go to the big part of it, the monetization. And let's talk about how we can monetize it. I was actually reading a book on a digital transformation from Margaret Johnson. She's saying basically the most successful companies are those companies that basically they're digitally transforming their business, not just the operation. And these are, you can see it. There's so many manufacturers, industrial and commercial applications. They are just trying to optimize the process by adding a node. But at the end of the day, if they can add a business model and digital business model, mostly as a SaaS model, for example, they will be successful. So that's a part we want to talk about it. Now we have a device, we have a connectivity, data, and we want to add a value basically to this platform. As I mentioned before in other episodes, usually we have a 5 layers of the IoT as a technical side. We have a hardware, we have a firmware running on that hardware, we have a connectivity like a cellular, Wi-Fi, or whatever that can upload the data, and then we have a cloud system like let's say AWS or some sort of server, Azure, to collect the data, and then we have an application running on top of that. I barely touched the application side so far, but that is a really big part because all the monetization, everything, business model, SaaS model, that's come into play in that application layer. And as I mentioned, if we want to make this technology feasible, doable, we have to find the money to make money and a revenue stream actually. So that's the reason we are going to talk about the SaaS model. How do you see that actually by enriching the data that we're getting actually, how we can make it meaningful for our customers, for the users, so to basically not just being a technology users, being some sort of the bundled like a technology plus added value on the business side model. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's interesting because we see lots of examples where organizations have installed different types of sensor IoT technologies for a very specific use case, and they have a lot of that data, and maybe there's a very small group of people using that data for a very very specific kind of piece of monitoring, even if it's just knowing how many of these things are live and whether they're on or off and working, right? So maybe more operational. But invariably, there's a lot of data and insight in that can be used for different users and different people for, service maintenance, and or it might be for informing different groups of people in the organisation that might be able to make different decisions around what that data might be telling them. And it's unlocking that really that is the key to driving value. And the way you do that with a kind of software as a service layer is making sure that you've probably already got some ideas about how that data might be used, or even the different types of users that might find that data useful. In fact, you can probably see the people that may even pay for that data. You probably already know that there are audiences, groups of organizations or individuals that already value that. They may already be coming to you and saying, can we have your data? And you're thinking about, how do I manage that? How do I control that and monetize it? And actually, it's quite simple from our point of view. That application layer is all about making sure that you're giving a restricted, controlled access to that data that you can switch on and off, and also monetize by being able to activate those users and deactivate those users in a really automated and secure way, and also making sure that application layer can not only control what users can and can't see, but importantly what they can and can't do. So let's say you would like to give users just information about the data itself. Just show me what data you've got, right? And it might be that's visually in dashboards, or it may even be, I just want the list of data. Give me an extract, give me a spreadsheet, a CSV file. But you only want them to have certain amounts of data, and you only want to have it in a certain way. And you can control that through an application layer. But actually, you may have some other ambitions for the use of that sensor data, because IoT can not only tell us what's happening now or what happened in the past, it can also be a really important indication of what may happen in the future. So predictive maintenance is probably one of the most common use cases that I see for monetization in IoT at the moment, because these attached devices and the things that they are connected to as well, managing the operation so that you take action before things fail, you're able to stop an event happening, can be really high value, especially in manufacturing and all sorts of other environments. So really what you wanted to do is take historical data and score that new data as it comes in as a likelihood that an event may happen, and notify somebody that there is a risk of an event happening, so they can then go and check something or take action. And again, this application layer isn't just about making data available to people in a self-service, easy way. It's about using that data for different users, different audiences, different use cases, and actually to drive outcomes. And if I could I give a couple of examples, Amir? Would that be
Sure, sure,
helpful?
sure.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I really like the example you talk about the predictive maintenance. That's exactly my field. So we will touch on this topic later on during our discussion. But yeah, please go ahead, and if you have more example, please.
No, I just think it's for me, always start with the end goal in mind when you're thinking about that SaaS layer. What are you monetizing? Who is the audience that is going to value this insight, and how do they want that insight served to them? So are we dealing with an audience that just wants to be told when something might happen? Whether that's a prediction or just an exceptional alert, this is switched off, this is on, and how do we deliver that insight? Are they mobile workers that need to be able to have something they can just consume on their mobile phone? Or are they going to be working at a desk and actually this is just something they're going to be consuming and checking in on a daily basis? Or are we dealing with a C-suite stakeholder that just wants a report in their inbox on a Monday morning telling them all the events that have happened over that last period, whatever that might be, just presented in a PowerPoint, a Word document, a PDF? So really think about that end audience that is likely to want to pay for that information, and how do they want to receive it? And what outcome is it or decision is it they're trying to make with that data? So if you can articulate that, if you can articulate the person, why they value that data and the outcome it's going to drive, and the format they're likely to want that in, it's very easy for organizations like us to help you to create an experience for that user that you can monetize, right? And you can brand as your own. So you white label Panintelligence, so it's branded as your own service, and that insight will be managed in whatever way is suitable to that use case for every user, and you can switch those users on and off and charge them. But always think about that. I think if you can define that use case and describe that, working back from that is very easy for application layers, SaaS layers like us, to help you to kind of close that loop that you described, Amir, that kind of closed loop monetization to really drive the value from that PaaS and IoT infrastructure. Yeah.
I really like your vision on the user case, and that's exactly we really need to do on all products, definitely, and that's that's a missing vision most of the time from some of the products. Basically, they're trying to just launch a cool product. I'm just talking broadly about the products, not even just digital. Every products. We are trying to make a cool technology. We see the technology is going really fast, but we're forgetting actually at the end of the day, users, they want to use it, and what's the reason they're using it. And exactly as you mentioned, even on the SaaS model, we want to make sure we understand why people are going through the SaaS model. I wanna mention first of all, for our audience, we're talking about the SaaS model, software as a service, and you're hearing a lot of terms these days: SaaS, PaaS model, platform as a service, task model, technology as a service, XaaS, actually. everything as a service. But I'm saying the big difference to me, at least, I want to ask Zandra, your vision as well. But to me, big difference is the pass is mostly combination of the technology plus plus the um, software side of it, but it's going to give you more freedom to the people to put everything together. But on the other side, it makes it more complex for a company. Let's say, as a SaaS model, you can subscribe to a software and you can get a service monthly base, and that will be really good for you as a company who doesn't want to tweak or really customize all the features. Once you go to the pass system, actually, you have more freedom, but at the same time, you need more resources. And now our industry, our technology is going so fast. We don't have all the resources on earth actually to invest, and we don't have that capital. So definitely, SaaS model is really reasonable these days, and we see a lot of we see a lot of providers for the SaaS and PaaS, AWS, Azure actually. But one thing I have seen so far on some of these offering, let's say AWS, it's really cool up to the point we want to analyze the data. They're giving you some tools, but I'm saying definitely, that's at least my vision. We need companies like you guys to come into play and basically make this closed loop, as I mentioned, to add that value as a business side. How do you see this difference actually for companies?
Yeah, so we're in this in sort of this middle ground, and let me try and describe it. So we can be deployed on any PaaS environment, right? So we could be on AWS, Azure, GCP, or even on a private cloud. So we're agnostic of the PaaS environment. But what we are is a technology that enables people to create a SaaS layer, right? So if you've got, like you said, it's complex, and actually not just you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of technical capability and understanding and skills to configure a PaaS environment. And actually you need to keep pace with all of the changes that happens within a PaaS environment and the connected nature that you described. So you've got an underlying transactional database, and you might be using a range of different data architectures actually to collect that data. You may have lots of different connectivity, different ways of bringing data into that data storage, whether it's a database, whatever it might be. And then you have all of the kind of cloud infrastructure from how you enable that to be resilient, available, stable, and that's quite technical and quite complex. And there's a lot of interconnected, interrelated systems there you need to keep on top of. So it can be very time consuming to then go to that next level to go, hey, okay, we're working all of this infrastructure and moving the data and getting it here. How do I then do the next step? And that's where technologies like us really sit as an enabling SaaS to happen, because you essentially configure our solution to connect to that data and then white label it and do any of those things you want. Make it available as an insight, make it available as a report that sends out to people, configure it for prediction, because it does all of those things as a SaaS application layer. But it means you don't have to have a team of developers to do that, right? So if you're PaaS experts, but you want to monetize that data, you don't have to have a team of developers to develop a front-end app layer. You can use technologies like ours to build that SaaS layer out and create a monetization layer, and not need to be, software developers, frankly. You can remain in that PaaS space confidently and work with us to do that. So it's interesting because you've usually got software businesses that are specialist software developers, but then you have PaaS specialists who are cloud and infrastructure engineers, and bringing all of those skills together is not easy in one organization. So it's good to have different organizations working together to enable that end-to-end closed loop to happen, in my
Oh,
experience.
great. Great. Thank you. One thing actually, I'm thinking these days, because there was a trend in IoT, everything should be connected, everything should be cloud-based. But also, I'm seeing there is another trend these days. they are pushing everything to be on an edge, and basically all the analysis, everything will be on the edge side of it. So I'm always thinking, so if you push it to the edge side and everything will be on the device itself, what's going to happen to that SaaS model and PaaS model we are talking? Because once you have everything on the cloud, it's easier to maintain it, it's easier to change the features, and it's connected. Although that edge computing also is connected, but do you see any downside of going to the edge computing on a SaaS model, for example, you guys have?
I think we're right at the early stages of that being adopted at any level that would sort of pull the market to innovate around that, right? So I think it's absolutely inevitable that that's where we will go, because the volumes of data are only ever going to exponentially increase as we continue to combine. So when I think about, if I just think about an intelligent building, for example, you're only going to have, I mean, crikey, I stayed in a hotel last week, and it felt like everything in this new hotel was connected, right? And in this one room, there must have been 20 different things connected, from heating and lighting and blinds, and everything seemed to be connected, or certainly accessible and controllable. And so I think we're going to be in those environments where just physical spaces perhaps will have be collecting so much data that actually processing it at the edge before you push an insight up to the cloud will be necessary, I think, for all sorts of reasons. But that said, it's always about convergence of technologies. So, I remember my mum bringing the first modem home, and it taking down the phone line every time it screeched out to the internet. I remember waiting for the first page of a website to load really slowly, and I remember the idea of moving your server into a visit building, not your building, as the cloud, to just host it somewhere else, as all being really quite radical at the time, and now is completely, when I look at the generation now, that their expectations of these things is just a given. I think edge analysis and edge computing is just the next step that we're all going to walk towards. So I think we all have to understand it, embrace it, but most importantly, I go back to use cases. Let's think about, how is this going to be used first, and where and why? And let's deal with those use cases where we're most likely to have a need for edge computing, edge analytics, should I say, and actually make sure that we are testing and validating how we're going to manage that and work with it as apps and applications. I know we're looking at it now, but what we want to do is make sure that we're doing that with kind of real world examples and making that useful in that context. So yeah, it's just tech evolves fast, right?
Yeah,
Really.
it's going really fast. It's going really fast. So now let's change the gear a little bit, because um, whenever we are talking about the SaaS model, most people, their based understanding is we are talking about enterprises. We are talking about the big businesses or small businesses. But these days, there is a pretty good trend for the and hot trend actually for a customer side, end users. And I really like the point actually you mentioned on the predictive maintenance, because it's not just on the B2B side, it's on the B2C side as well, as a homeowner, for example. If you have a HVAC, that's my field, by the way. So if you have a connected HVAC, it's not just going to help you, dealers, contractors, for example. If you're listening to this podcast, it's going to help the homeowner at the end of the day as well, because they can make sure they have a heat and they have a cooling system running. And if you want to talk a little bit about the statistics, actually, there was a report. It was saying actually, they asked so many companies actually, 45% of them, they mentioned actually the first priority they have for the next 5 years is to enhance the user experience. And the second question was, what's your second priority? 33% mentioned actually it will be our product. So that's huge. 45%, they're saying our main priority is the user experience. And now actually the trend I see, for example, in my field, probably in the next few years, we are gonna experience something as a user experience 6 AS actually as a service. Basically, we are going to enhance the user experience side, not just on the business side, on the homeowner side, on the end user side as well. So how do you see that actually? What's your vision for the next maybe 5 years on that?
I think we're already experiencing this as individuals when we think of our finances, right? You know, we can all do our online banking on our mobile phone now, and you know the need for going into a branch or a building to go and process things financially has stopped. Frankly, I don't remember the last time I walked into a high street bank. And I think that kind of has all been enabled through just a really good user experience. Not all banks have got it right, but just simple things that can be done and trusting the end user that they're actually more than capable of navigating and doing these things for themselves with a good user experience through a mobile device invariably or desktop. When it comes to insights, our experience from data, if you're looking at prediction or predictive maintenance or giving customers better information, yes, you've got maybe the engineer who's getting a prediction that this customer might not be in today, or maybe you should prioritize this job over this job because we think it's going to take you longer because we know it's this device as opposed to this device. I don't know, but whatever might's on the engineer. But at the same time, you want that to automatically inform the customer, right? I'm coming to you early, or I'm going to be arriving late, or I probably need to be there for 2 hours. And giving that customer a sense of being informed and having choices, again, is all about ensuring those insights. And I go back to that, if you can draw it out on a piece of paper, the users and the use case and how they will need to consume that information, it's all possible. It's all happening now. This is not difficult stuff for those of us that sit in that SaaS application layer. We're doing it all day, every day, enabling data to be consumable in lots of different ways for different users and different use cases, making sure it can be absolutely as simple as possible for that user that just needs a very specific thing told to them at a very specific time in a very specific way. So it's all happening now. I think just reach out if you're wanting to know how easy this is to do. Reach out to companies like ours and we'll show you some examples of just how simple it can be to really bring this stuff to life for different types of examples, and quick as well. Really,
Yeah, exactly. It's
really
pretty
quick.
quick.
I think that's key. People are, God, this is a big project. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be expensive. It's not. I mean, it really is not. This is quick. It's not expensive and it's very light. In our case, we don't move data. We query the data set live. So you're not even having to create any more data infrastructure to deal with a SaaS environment. You can use your existing infrastructure to provide a SaaS layer, an application layer. I'm not going to talk about how we're configured and all that kind of stuff. I could go into that depth here, but I'm conscious we're not really talking at that level. But there is a real simplicity to getting these things deployed, configured, set up, authenticated, and providing insights that can take days. This is not months. This is quick.
Yep, yeah, you're right. Actually, and the goal definitely it will be to make it easier, faster, and better for the users to use this service. Let's go back, for example, 100 years ago. We used to I'm saying we, but I was not there. But people, they used to make everything at home. For example, they used to do all the services they need to do it themselves. But stuff changed, and actually there is other companies. For example, you go to get your pizza from somewhere else. You go to get your clothes irons from somewhere else. I don't know. And you go to bank to kind of put your money. I'm saying that's the same thing to me actually. Today, the technology is going so fast, you cannot do everything in a house. In-house means as an enterprise.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to go outside to look for other people that can give you a service. And as you mentioned, I really like your point. The goal here is to make it faster, quicker, because otherwise, people they will do it based on their resources. The goal here is to be fast, and as capable as possible. So other people, for example, other companies, instead of just investing on that part of the technology, on that part of the analysis, they can do their own innovations and basically make sure they can rely on companies like you, for example, for their IoT analysis that they have. That's the point. And now, actually, I want to switch the gear and actually ask you to talk a little bit about the company actually you have and what kind of service. We kind of touch on it, but I'm saying at the end of our podcast, I want to go through a little bit more details on your company, the type of people you're working with, actually, the type of a service you're going to offer, and what is in the company roadmap actually to have a better service in the future, as much as you can discuss. Definitely, you have some confidential stuff you don't want to
It's
discuss
fine.
about it, but whatever you can bring to our audience.
Brilliant, of course. So thank you for that. That's very generous of you. And so we're a three-in-one piece of technology, and what that means is it does three things, but it's a single application that you can configure and deploy wherever you want. And the three things that it does is it allows, number one, for you to create visual insights over data. So drillable, slice, dice dashboards. Imagine really kind of Power BI type functionality, but very, very customizable for anybody. So when I talk about being able to do your banking on your mobile phone, this is anybody can build a dashboard. Anybody can build a chart or a table or anything they want. You can enable them with that first piece of what we do. So data visualization, real-time insights of what's happening with that data that you're collecting. The second thing we do is have this scheduling and reporting engine. Allows us to do a couple of things. The first is if you want to send an insight out to somebody when something happens, something changes, an alert, an exception, or just push out some information at a particular time of day in whatever format you want, like I said, a PDF, a report, a PowerPoint, or just a spreadsheet, doesn't matter, could even be an SMS. That engine allows you to push insight out to people, let them know what's happening at an appropriate time in an appropriate way. So you've got that kind of exploration dashboard, and then you've got this scheduling, alerting, and reporting engine. And the last thing of the three-in-one things that we do is it's a machine learning engine that you can configure. So we're connecting to the data in the same way for all these three things, but the machine learning engine allows you to build predictive models. So take all the characteristics of your sensor data, define an outcome or an objective, so predicting a device that's most likely to fail, because it's met a certain number of characteristics, using historical data to create a scorecard and applying a score to new data coming in. And as that new data comes in, it will apply that score, and then it will treat that in however you want it to. So it could just appear on a dashboard that somebody's looking at on a big screen in your office, or it could send a notice out to an engineer, or it could alert somebody. And these three things it's a complete application you configure. So you install it into your VPC, wherever that is, whatever cloud PaaS environment you use. You can deploy it using an AMI if it's Marketplace and an AWS, or a Kubernetes. I always get that wrong when I say it. A Docker, you name it. However you like to deploy, there'll be a way you can deploy it as you drop us into your environment. We have standard drivers for every database you can possibly imagine, even the latest whizzy ones like Firebolt. And we connect live to that data, and we create a semantic layer of objects that allows you to change the names of them if you wish, put some logic around those endpoints, so do some calculations on the fly. In fact, just all sorts of clever stuff that you can do in that semantic layer. So that's the way you organize what it's looking at, so that it makes it useful for that end user so they can do all those cool three things. And then the real beauty of this is, because you are running this in your environment and configuring it, because you don't have to develop anything, you're just configuring the solution to do those three things. You white label it, you rebrand it, and then you switch it on as a service. So it looks like you, it feels like you, and then you decide what users can and can't see and what users can and can't do. And every time you switch on a user, you can monetize that. You can just decide how much to charge for it. And it really is, for us, about helping people to unlock the value in data for as many different use cases as they can possibly imagine, which always for us comes about what information do they need, how do they need it, what are they using it for, and let's ensure we've got a user profile that delivers that insight to people in a way that's useful to them, and then you attribute a cost to that, and then you can monetize it. Very simple from our point of view. But yeah, imagine a Power BI plus a Crystal Reports plus an Alteryx all in one box. You can white label and deploy in your PaaS environment and basically switch on tons of different use cases you can monetize for your sensor data. Does that make sense, Amir? Does that
Yep, exactly, exactly. But and I also want to ask you because those people online actually definitely they want to in case they're interested they want to engage with your business. So how can they engage with you guys actually? What's the best way to engage with your business?
So I love connecting with people via LinkedIn. And when I do these podcasts, I always say, do you know what? I love to hear if you've listened to this podcast and you found it useful, please just drop me a note on LinkedIn, find me. So I'm Zandra Moore, quite easy to find. Unusual name helps, but Zandra Moore, Panintelligence. If you were to literally drop me a message on LinkedIn and connect and say, hey, I just listened to Amir's podcast, really interesting. Could we have a call? That would be the most amazing way for me to know, hey, where you've come from, and B, I can then have give you a personal response. I have a marketing organisation, a sales organisation, and by all means click on a demo form on the website or email through the sales channel. But do you know what? I like to give a personal response to people that have listened to podcasts. So please do find me on LinkedIn. Let me know you've listened to this, and I can also let Amir know that people have reached out to me. So it's a great feedback loop from my point of view to make sure that these things are really driving value for the community. So do that first, and if you want, also just apply, request a demo or a meeting on our website. Panintelligence.com, by the way. I'm not putting
Great. Actually, I will put a link below my video actually, so people they can find you and they can find the website definitely.
Thank you.
And first of all, thank you so much for attending. I'm really glad actually finally we got a chance to record this podcast. And the reason I'm saying because um, as I mentioned, all this cool technology, we cannot unlock the power of the IoT unless we have a data analysis on top of that, and we can make this SaaS model, for example. That is our enabler to having this IoT and make it feasible, doable, and possible. Is there anything actually you want to add that we didn't discuss it actually?
Um, I don't necessarily think so. We have worked with lots of different types of sensor technologies and loads of different PaaS infrastructures, right? We're an AWS marketplace partner. You know, we have like all sorts of come across most different types of, and we have hundreds and hundreds of technology companies that are our customers. So we are very very well placed to help support and advise on the best way to architect a solution for success. So please do reach out, even if you're not ready to go on a SaaS journey, but you're just looking at what you're doing, thinking about, are we setting what we're doing up in the right way for potentially a SaaS service? And we'll certainly be happy to talk to you about considerations for that and infrastructure and architectures that we know are really performant for those kind of monetization of SaaS platforms. But I think it's a really, really fascinating area. I'm so delighted you invited me to speak about this because I think bringing the application layer alongside the IoT layer is a real key to accelerating this whole IoT movement, which is so exciting right now. So thank you, Amir.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me. Definitely, as I mentioned, it will be really helpful for our audience. And also for my audience, if you want to watch more video regarding the IoT and also about the SaaS model and PaaS model, we want to continue this discussion because it will be really valuable for the IoT journey for you guys. So if you want to watch more videos, please subscribe to the channel. So once I release a new video, you will see it in your feed. Again, thank you so much, Zandra.
The pleasure. Thank you, Amir.